But it's because self-expression is sitting in the shadows outside that 45 degrees of view and perspective that they hold. And so they're walking around, they've got all these parts of them in their most authentic self that would be love themselves and honor themselves and have enough dignity and self-respect to know that their opinion matters, to know that their creative expression is valuable and actually very fulfilling. But if it's hiding in the shadows because a part of them experienced trauma around expression, then they're not really living their most authentic life. They'll unconsciously avoid things that could create or recreate that traumatic experience. And that's how everyone's walking around. So I identify that as someone that's scared. But that person's on their way to work in a job that requires less expression. So maybe they're in an IT job, or maybe they work with numbers and spreadsheets and accounting. They don't really do many meetings. They don't do much client-facing stuff. And they're on the tram on the way back from the city after their work day ends. They're not thinking, I'm scared. But their whole reality has been sculpted by their mind to avoid a huge aspect of what's possible for them in their life. I would say that person's scared. It's just not being activated because they avoid recreating the same unsafe scenario that they experienced when they were younger. And that unsafe scenario could have looked like someone just having friends come over at a family gathering and the parents say, hey, keep it down. We're trying to socialize here. Go play by yourself. And the child might have really subjectively perceived that as like really scary. I just got shamed. And if I get shamed by the people that I depend upon for survival, if I go do something like that again, they might exile me from the tribe. They might abandon me and I'll die in the wild myself. That's how our hardware is created inside of our mind. Or I would say software. That's how software was created. It's to avoid rejection. So in other words, trauma is a big deal. It massively influences the way that we approach life. Everyone has it. And most people have these exiled parts in the shadows, and they're not aware that there are shadows for exiled parts to exist in, let alone have awareness over what the exiled parts are and how is that limiting their life. So, in other words, or moving forward, just to bring this loop home, we need to, in a lot of cases, to get into and start working with this trauma, we need to create enough safety in our system that our whole nervous system and psychology trusts us that we can hold those scary feelings that our exiled parts didn't get to feel right now in this moment in this body. And so when people say, I'm not scared, safe, I'm going to laugh about safety. Why would I feel unsafe? If that person had emotion come up in a situation, there is very little chance, if they're just a normal member of society, that they would have the capacity to hold themselves in a situation for the emotion to come up around other people or even by themselves. And the way that we can view emotional suppression is when any addictive tendency comes in, it's to suppress emotion. If you're addicted to sugar, sweets, your body's dysregulated. It's afraid that within that dysregulation, some of these exiled parts might arise, and you'll use some form of addictive tendency, whether it's cleaning, working, busyness, emotional eating, scrolling, whatever it is, to stuff down, shift the sensory experience. You eat the sugar, boom, big dramatic influence on your state. Shifts and distracts away from the emotion. That's why people binge eat. That's why in extreme forms, people do drugs. And then they need to take more and more and more because their body adapts, and no longer is that suppression technique working. The emotions still coming to the surface. And when it all fails and people become too adept to whatever the addictive strategies are, People will literally end their life in a lot of cases before they sit in the emotional pain that's underneath those addictions.